Hi, good morning, or good evening, or good afternoon, good day. Wednesday's lesson is Paul and Colossae, is the title. And here we go. We have no record of Paul ever visiting Colossae, which again tells us something about the effectiveness of his evangelistic strategy. First, it was Epaphras, a resident of Colossae, we find in Colossians 4:12, who brought the gospel to that city, Colossians 1:7. But how was he converted? Most likely, it was in the mid 50s when Paul was in nearby Ephesus, and all they which dwelt in Asia heard the word of the Lord Jesus. Acts 19:10, and compare with Acts 20, verse 31. The book of Revelation witnesses to how widely the gospel spread throughout this area. Revelation 1:4. The most plausible explanation for this success, including its spread to Colossae, was a result of the work of Paul's converts, who first heard the message in Ephesus, the most important city in Asia Minor and a major port. Epaphras heard Paul's preaching in Ephesus, and becoming one of his co-workers, he took the gospel back to his hometown of Colossae. The city itself, about 9 miles southeast of Laodicea, is only now being excavated, so we know less about it compared to more prominent cities of the region. We do know that it had a sizable Jewish population, with as many as 10,000 Jews living in that area of Phrygia. That comes from Arthur Padzia's New International Bible Commentary. Let's see. Coins minted at Colossae indicate the people there, as in many Roman cities, worshipped a variety of gods. The pagan practices and strong cultural influences obviously presented Christians there with tremendous challenges, not only in evangelizing the city, but also remaining faithful to the pure faith of the gospel. Another prominent Christian in Colossae was Philemon, who may have been converted about the same time as Epaphras. So our question is, and Philemon verses 15 and 16, and also Colossians 4:9, what course did Paul gently urge Philemon to pursue with Onesimus? Now, if you don't have a chance to pull the backstory, though, Onesimus was a runaway slave who was owned by Philemon. So here we have in verse 16 and 17 of Philemon. It's only one chapter, but I'll go in that book. No longer as a slave, but more than a slave, a beloved brother, especially to me, but how much more to you, both in the flesh and in the Lord. If then you count me as a partner, receive him as you would me. So Paul is writing to Philemon about Onesimus because he has counseled Onesimus to return back to his master that he has run away from which he was a slave. Now, it says here, although Roman law required Paul to return Onesimus to Philemon, Paul's appeal to Philemon's heart and conscience as a fellow believer and urges him to treat Onesimus not as a slave, but as a brother. So he is asking Philemon, who's a convert, and Onesimus, who's also a convert, he's asking Philemon to accept Onesimus back as a brother. Even though Onesimus had stolen some money and ran off. I mean, he wanted to be free, right? Who wants to be a slave? And here Paul is counseling Onesimus to go back and for Philemon to receive him not as a runaway slave, but as a brother. He's asking him to receive him as he would receive Paul, who was responsible at some point for his conversion experience. So it's an interesting dynamic that we find here. And the lesson ends with this statement. However much we detest the idea of slavery in any form and wish that Paul would have condemned the practice, how do we come to terms with what Paul says here? That's a very good question. How fascinating that during slavery in the United States, Ellen White specifically told Adventists to defy the law that ordered people to return escaped slaves. So we have a difference of counsel given by two different people who are being impressed and led by God. From what I understand and what I've read, what we find here is God at different times giving different advice based on the primary purpose, which is the gospel. So if the gospel can be best served by Onesimus returning back to Philemon, then that is the counsel that was given. But if the gospel can be best served by helping those who are in slavery escaped, then that is the counsel that's given. Because slavery is an evil thing, but the gospel has more power to change the hearts of people who then won't have slaves any longer than any other force that can be laid upon a man. So it's the gospel. At the end of the day, the gospel, the gospel, the gospel, above all else, the gospel. God bless you in your studies. Look forward to meeting with you again.